I know it's been a while since I've done an episode of the podcast, but I've just been really burned out at work. Since I got that promotion, they've just been putting me through qualification after qualification and just tons and tons of training. So, like, my brain is just constantly just burned out. Like, this is probably the first week since the last time I recorded an episode of the podcast that I finally have had some sort of energy mentally to actually be able to record an episode. So I don't know if I will be doing another episode next week or if there's going to be like another 2 or 3 week hiatus, but I can guarantee you that once I'm done with all these qualifications, I will be pretty much back to my regular every week schedule of 1 episode a week every week. So just bear with me. You know, the prices of being neurodivergent is all I can say. Anyway, with that, welcome to this week's episode of Divergence and Divine. My name is WIllspiration, and I guess over the course of the last 3 weeks, maybe 4, I forget. I'll figure out how long it's been since I uploaded an episode. But if there's one thing that I want to talk about is just, I don't know. It's been an interesting journey, I guess, the last 3 weeks, but a lot of it to me just kind of has to do with more self-esteem and self-confidence stuff. It's going to be a kind of a hodgepodge of topics that kind of all converge into like the same point. Hopefully it converges into the same point. I'm saying that now because that's how I see it in my head, but it may not actually come out that way. So we're just going to kind of see if it does or not. But over the course of the last, couple weeks that I haven't recorded, if there's one thing that I've learned is that with me, I've seen it a lot, but like, first of all, it's okay to accept help from other people. I know sometimes that some of us are kind of a little bit embarrassed or a little prideful to accept help because, we're neurodivergent, especially being level 1 autistic and having ADHD, where depending on how both of those affect you, you may feel like you don't have those struggles as badly as other people that are just purely autistic or purely ADHD. And maybe your symptoms kind of clash with each other and cancel each other out or override one another, and you still feel kind of like you could be neurotypical when you're not. But at the same time, there isn't anything wrong with asking for help because it really does make a difference when you do. And it's a lot easier on you because, yeah, sure, there's that need to like prove that you can do what a neurotypical can and that you can do it without help. But that's kind of like the biggest issue is that I've also noticed that neurotypicals don't want to ask for help because they seem very prideful. Like, no, I can do this on my own. I don't need help. Whereas like us neurodivergents that do struggle more, that do need help, we're like, it's not so. There is a little bit of pride, yes, but it's also mainly from embarrassment and self-consciousness, like as if we don't already have enough issues as it is, and now we got to ask for help on something else because we're neurodivergent, and it's like, then you don't want to ask for help because it just makes you feel worse about yourself. But the biggest thing that I've noticed is asking for help is okay. Asking for clarification is okay. Asking for direct communication is okay. I wouldn't have gotten this far in life had I not done that, if that makes sense. And even then, just like, also from like the perspective of like work, it helps a lot too, because then it's like, I wouldn't have gotten that promotion. I mean, I don't really know if it's like, moving up a position, yes, it is like a promotion, but it doesn't feel like a promotion, but that's probably because I already learned this stuff accidentally through just absorbing it from around me because, ADHD brain for the win. But I don't know. I just kind of feel like it was more of it was a promotion, but it didn't feel like a promotion. I don't know. I just feel like it was a little more over glorified than it actually was. But I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't have gotten there without that kind of stuff. And especially when it comes to like doing things across metaphysics, is like I wouldn't have gotten this far in like my spiritual journey and doing Reiki and all this other stuff if I didn't ask questions, if I didn't meditate and, ask the universe for guidance and answers and, even ask my Reiki teacher before she became my Reiki teacher if, for help. And even in therapy is just like, for those of us that are ADHD with level 1 autism, some of us, I feel like, are more introspective than others. And I'm sure there's other people that just have, autism level 1 that are also just as introspective, or people with just only ADHD that are also introspective. But coming from my perspective as a level 1 autistic ADHDer, it just kind of feels like I'm extremely introspective. So like, I know when I do something that's not right. Like, for example, this past weekend at work, there was a packer that was giving me a hard time. Now, on Mondays, usually, depending on what's going on, they either have me train with first shift, or they just have me pack on a couple of lines, one of the 2 lines that kind of overwhelmed me a little bit, although it turns out that one of those lines is not as bad for me as I initially thought, and I kind of would prefer to be on that line more. But that's neither here or there. So they put me on the one that does not jive well with me and my autism, right? And this packer is starting to get mad at me because I can't keep up with, putting the components in these pucks, right? And like, I'm struggling. I mean, the belt speed's fast. The customers that run the line want it to run as fast as it can, where it's still humanly possible to pack, but like, it still gets done really fast, which, by the way, newsflash, regardless of whether you're neurotypical or neurodivergent, one thing that everyone agrees on is that the line is too damn fast, right? And then this packer's giving me attitude about not being able to keep up. And then this other packer that's responsible for taking the trays that are empty of the components off of the little sliding cart thing that they are on and putting fresh ones in was also giving me a hard time. And eventually I didn't go off on anybody, but I did end up screaming, "I'm trying," because they were giving me a hard time about not being able to keep up. And then, of course, one of them finally, was like, "Oh, he's like really stressed out. Like, I'm just going to not say anything, just going to do my job, and I'm going to try to be a little more helpful." The other one went and talked to the operations manager and asked to be moved off the line because apparently my frustration of them antagonizing me for not keeping up apparently upset her. So, was it wrong for me to yell? Yes. But at the same time, it came from a place of frustration because I'm already struggling as it is. I'm ADHD and I'm already struggling to keep up in the spot. Like, what more do you want from me? Like, it's technically a 4-person spot, but the customers didn't want to pay to have, an extra person in that spot. So it's now a 3-person spot, and it's, stressful as all hell, but that doesn't give you the right to give me an attitude and and try to belittle me because I'm struggling to keep up because I actually have something that causes me to struggle with coordination. It's not right. But even then, I talked to the operations manager myself. I even told him, I said, even if she didn't say something, I was going to come and talk to you about it anyway, because for me, it's not I feel bad because I shouldn't have snapped, right? But at the same time, I was already frustrated, and it's just kind of, I already feel bad that I'm failing the line. I feel like I'm not contributing enough as it is, even though I'm giving 110%. And when you got people that are getting frustrated with me because I can't keep up rather than being understanding, it's just really frustrating to me. So it's just and it's different. And I didn't mention this to him, but I'm going to mention it here on the podcast, that it's different when you are the one running the line, when packers come to you, because you're running the line, what you say goes unless a team lead or a supervisor or an operations manager tells you otherwise. You pretty much run that line how you want. So it's easier to be able to look at the people that are giving others a hard time, tell them to knock it off, give them a couple warnings, and then be like, all right, if you're going to sit here and keep belittling this person and making them feel bad because they're struggling, I'm going to call a team lead down here and they can talk to you and tell you to knock it off. And if the team lead talks to them and just says, if they keep it up, just send them to the operations manager's office, then, I'll make an announcement after we come back from break saying that people need to get along, try to help each other out more, and communicate, because most sections have multiple people working the same spot. So it's you guys that are running, putting the components in the puck, the three of you need to communicate. The people that are putting the components in the, in the packaging, you three on this side and you three on that side need to communicate with each other, so then that way things are flowing smoothly. You guys have to work with each other, not sit there and get mad at each other and belittle each other and get frustrated at each other because no one is communicating, nor can you just automatically assume that anyone that's been on this line has had enough time on this line to know what they're doing. They might still need more practice. So you can't just get mad at everybody. Because yes, it's a stressful line. But unless we all work together, acknowledge that we all get frustrated, then nobody's going to like working on this line. So, per, team lead and supervisor and operations manager, if any of y'all start giving each other shit, I have full permission to just send you straight to the operations manager's office. So I'm warning you right now. I hear any sort of belittling or frustration or arguing. It doesn't matter who started it. Y'all are going to the office. And if the whole line gets bad enough, we are shutting the line down and we are calling the operations manager here, and he is going to talk to all of you. Are we clear? Because now you set that tone of, hey, this isn't right. I'm not going to sit here and have people going off on each other when it's a stressful line and people refuse to communicate and work together. That's why we have so many problems in the first place. But when you're not the one that's running the line and you're the one packing, it is very hard to get to that point where you can just be like, I'm not going to let what they say bother me, because everybody's just stressed out. So everyone's probably just, looking to take their frustration out on somebody, which is wrong. Obviously, you never want to take your frustration out on somebody. That's not okay. But it's just, I don't think that that's okay. And the fact that most of the people that run the lines are always just whatever, is just, it just kind of shows that and I'm not, okay, when I say this, I'm not trying to say that neurotypicals are better or are worse than neurodivergence, or that neurodivergence are better than neurotypicals, but I'm just simply acknowledging that some neurodivergents have this as a strength, which is because of the sensory issues, some of us might have very sensitive hearing. So it's just like, it's easier to pay attention to things and run a machine than it is for a neurotypical who's kind of more easily just, blinded by, not blinded, but like, I was going to say, it's kind of like how you go nose blind to smells, where it's like, if something smells, but you just get used to the smell that you don't really smell it anymore, or don't smell it as bad. It's kind of like that with running a line. You just kind of, it's almost like you have tunnel vision almost, because you're just kind of like focusing on one thing at a time. So like for me, I would rather just, like, I know that I can keep an eye on everything, not visually, but auditory wise, I can keep an eye on the line with my hearing. So I would be able to tell people to knock it off, and people would know, like, oh shit, that's right. If I let myself get too out of control, my ass is going to be in the office and I'm probably going to get a write-up. So I need to tone it back, because there's no accountability. Like for me, I sat there and it took me about at least 40 minutes before I finally, had my little blow up moment, or like, I guess my little micro meltdown. So, you know what I mean? Like, I was fully aware, like, I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to have a meltdown. I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to just do my job, ignore what they're saying. But when you got people constantly pestering and belittling you like that, eventually you just kind of can't take it anymore. So that's why, like, for them, what they ultimately decided, what the team lead, supervisor, and operations manager decided was, if I need to step away because of my autism, it is fine to tell a line lead, hey, I need to step back for like 2 minutes because this is getting to be too much for me. Can you, like, I'm not leaving the line. I'm just going to be standing right here. It's 2 minutes. Let me just take some deep breaths. Let me relax before I jump back into it, or else I'm going to snap on somebody. And, that is actually, oddly enough, not the response that I was expecting to get, but I'm glad that it was, because like now I actually have permission from the operations manager to be able to call a team lead or a line lead over and be like, hey, can you take this spot? And if they say no, I'll be like, well, the operations manager told me that I could. So, I mean, unless you want me to go on the radio and call him down here and be like, hey, remember how you told me that I could ask to step away for like a minute or two if I needed to? Yeah, well, this line lead's refusing to do that, because then he's going to come and tell you that, yeah, I can do that, and you're going to have to deal with it anyway. So that's up to you if you want to talk to him or not. So for me, that was kind of like, oh, all right, that's cool. I like that idea. But like, for me, when I run a line, that's my priority, is making sure that everybody is staying on task, making sure that, I keep as much of an attention visually and auditorily to what's going on the line, and with my, with packers. So like, if somebody needs water, I take their spot really quick. If somebody needs to use the bathroom, I take their spot. If, something's wrong with the machine that isn't very, like, auditorily noticeable, but they notice it, then it's like letting me know so I can go over there and be like, oh shit, that's not good, and then stop the line and call maintenance if I have to. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure, I run the line, but like, and I do all the paperwork and just kind of make sure everyone's on task, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I just go, okay, you guys are going to do what I tell you to do. Like, there's this whole like team dynamic. Like, I'm the leader, and I need them to work, yes, but I'm also not just getting paid around to just stand there, stare at a machine and stare at other people to make sure that they're working. Like, I got stuff to do too, and if I get caught up on all of my stuff, then yeah, I can help them with things. Like, I can help them make, packaging materials like cartons and boxes, and help them pack it. They need help with it, that kind of stuff. So for me, that's kind of like my main goal, is just do my line lead stuff. And if I have downtime in between my line lead stuff, then it's just like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to help you guys out, because it's like, we're a team, right? Like, that's the whole point. And that's why I feel like a lot of packers typically don't have a lot of respect for the people that run the line, because they just kind of stand there and just do their line, do their line lead stuff. And then they just kind of, that's it. Like, they just stand there and not really do anything. They just keep an eye on the machine and then just, glance over at the packers every once in a while, make sure that everybody's doing their job. And it's just kind of like, yeah, but that's not how that really works. Like, everybody's a team, and that's kind of what is lacking. But I feel like that's kind of the biggest thing. That's why I always say, like, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for clear communication. Anything that you need to be able to function is good. If you need accommodations, ask. And it's like I told my operations manager, I'm like, I don't want to have to sit there and be like, I can't be on this line because it's too much. Like, yeah, I know that it's too much, but I also know that I've overcame every single adversity before me, and I've always learned something new about how to either work around the autism using the ADHD, or work around the ADHD using the autism, or how to work around situations by using both, or how to work around a situation that favors my weaknesses by turning them into strengths. Like, that has always been me. So I don't want to have to say, I give up. I can't be on this line, right? Because then I have to ask for accommodations, which is already bad enough as it is. Because, yeah, sure, my workplace is a neurodivergent friendly place, and they even ask you when you get hired in, like, are you neurodivergent? And then when you click yes, they list all the things that are currently known to be considered neurodivergent, and ADHD and autism are both on there. So, like, my work knows it, and it's in my workday profile that I'm autistic and ADHD, So it's not like it's a real big shock to anybody. But, like, I don't want to have to ask for accommodations because, there's also the ADHD side of it of like there's something here. I know that I can figure this line out. I can figure out those two positions that give me the most trouble if I just could if it was just a little bit slower, because then I could find the right rhythm, the right movements. And once I practice those rhythms and movements, I could do this at this speed, no sweat. But I can't figure it out if my brain doesn't have enough time to process it. So now I'm basically learning a new thing, which is it possible for me to be able to sit there and be able to find what that rhythm and groove is at that speed so I don't miss it? Because, like, the other thing too was that I was also dropping the components on the floor too, because I was so nervous and overwhelmed that I was shaking really bad. So it's just kind of, hey, I just need time to learn the line. That's all. But if I don't have the right people working near me, it just makes everything so much worse. So that's just something that maybe one day when I get to run that line, I want to make sure that all the packers know that their behaviors have not been very acceptable, and that, there could be consequences for their actions. So then that way they learn how to deal with frustration properly and not take it out on each other. What else? I think another thing is just kind of, I think mainly, if there's anything that I would want to talk about before the end of this episode, is I think it's just kind of, manifestation is a real thing. It really is. And metaphysics as a whole is, each month, each year is slowly becoming more and more not so much metaphysics as it is actual, like, physics in a way, per se. Not I mean, okay. Metaphysics is a term used for spiritual stuff, right? Because it's just kind of like, it's spiritual. It's not really like a tangible form of physics, right? But it still uses energy, just spiritual energy, right? It's slowly being proven that, like, for example, we do have auras. But from a scientific standpoint, it's because actually our cells emit a faint glow that change colors depending on the processes going on within the chemicals, or in the cells. I mean, not chemicals. And if there is a chemical process involved, that could change the color. They also emit that the vibrations and frequencies are real, and that it comes from, guess where? The heart. It comes from your chest. So, like, your heart emits a frequency or a vibration that other people can pick up on. And you know what's there? The heart chakra. So, what you're feeling gets radiated from the muscle that pumps blood through your body that keeps you alive. Who would have thought that with every beat is a pulse of your energy and kind of tells somebody how you're feeling or what's going on or kind of more about you in that situation? It's like there's so many little nuanced things that, like, are being proven scientifically possible with science, that when you look at it from a spiritual perspective, it's like, oh, hey, look, that lines up with the spiritual practice too. So, I mean, I guess it's not really metaphysics anymore, is it? It's just actual real physics. It's tangible. It's provable now. It's been proven. Like, now you can't deny that it's not real anymore. And yet people will still deny it anyway. But manifestation is real. Vibrations and frequencies are real. Auras are now real. It's just like, it's crazy. And a lot of people are like, oh, these are just like bullshit AI scripted journal reports because journalists are too fucking lazy to write stuff now, that they just use AI to generate shit. But it's not. Like, there are some of those articles that are genuinely written by humans with actual sources to these, places where they're doing these tests that prove that metaphysics are real. So, yeah, it might seem a little skeptical, but it's true. Like, it's very crazy to me that, it's finally gotten to the point where we can finally prove that metaphysics is real and that everything that people believe in spiritually is real. So, I think that's just pretty cool. Otherwise, I think if there's anything else, one of the biggest things is just, I think, being happy with the journey that you've been on when you start going down like that spiritual path. It really does like change your whole perspective on your life. I mean, obviously, if you've been through traumatic experiences, it's probably not going to help that much. Because obviously trauma is trauma and that never really goes away. Your life just grows around it. So it's not like it'll help a lot, in my opinion, because it's there. But it still gives you that ability to give you that strength to not let that trauma not resurface, but when it does resurface, to not let it take control of you. But it's just kind of more so when you like meditate and when you really look back and think on things, you kind of realize, wow, I was really stupid back then. Like, I should have seen that, or I should have known that this was going to happen. But it's okay because, when you're younger, you do things that you don't think will have consequences, or you do things just blindly not realizing that there's an ulterior motive behind it and that you fell into somebody's trap. But the biggest example is I had a friend that I met in middle school, and I've told this story many, many, many times throughout this podcast because I love using it as an example. But I'm sure you guys are probably tired of hearing it, but I always like to just reiterate this story because, there's always new viewers, and it's a really good example of, this topic right now. But like, I met a friend in middle school in 7th grade, and her sister was popular in high school, and my sister and her sister were in the same grade, and my sister didn't like her sister because she was popular. But she never really struck me as a bad person. But I was just thinking more with my mind, right? Like, oh, she's popular, don't trust her. But even way back then in middle school, like, even then, my spiritual abilities were already kind of more powerful. So like, once I kind of felt her energy, I'm just like, oh, her energy's not bad. She seems like a good person. And I kind of opened up to her, and we became friends. By the end of 7th grade, we were friends. Like, no ands, ifs, or buts. We were friends. And, we sat next to each other in band because, our trumpet playing skills weren't the greatest, but weren't the worst either. We were always kind of in the middle of the pack for the middle school band, like, trumpet section. But we always sat right next to each other. Like, our performance with the trumpet is pretty much equal. So by that point, we ended up being, super close, and well, not super close, but fairly close, I would say. Like, we were actually genuinely friends. Like, not just that, like, oh, we're friends at school, but I mean, we were like this was like genuine friendship. Like, there was an actual connection there, which is very rare at that age. That, when you're in middle school and high school, when you make friends, that, those connections end up being genuine and lasting. Like, shit, I don't even talk to any of my high school friends anymore. Like, we all lost contact, and by the time we all hit our late 20s, early 30s, none of us have reached out to each other since. So it's pretty wild. But this friend was the only genuine connection I think I made in school. But then there was this girl who liked me, and she was jealous because, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of started having a bit of a crush on my friend. I mean, when you're autistic and you're self-conscious and, that kind of stuff, and especially when you're undiagnosed and you don't know it, like, somebody that shows you that level of respect, you just kind of automatically assumes, like, your brain assumes that there's some sort of romantic interest or love in there. Which, newsflash, that's not always the case. But this girl ended up befriending me, and she started telling me all these lies about my friend, and persisted throughout high school. And eventually, one day, I was kind of like telling them, because it was during the senior prank, and we ended up getting our friend, who was the class president, ended up talking our principal into letting us do a senior prank after school. Like, we all go home, we come back at like 7, and we like draw on the windows, and TP a few trees, and maybe put some decorations around the school grounds to make it look like an actual like non-staged senior prank. Well, my friend had twisted her ankle, or at least she initially thought that she twisted it, and then it turns out she fractured it. So then she was in a boot. But then I see her climbing up like the little window outer sills of the windows. Like, holy crap, that's dangerous. I don't even know why you'd even be doing that. But then this girl that liked me still, even though at that point she didn't like me anymore because she already moved on to another guy who pretty much was like built exactly like me. He's about my height too, like 5'9", skinny, scrawny, lanky, nerdy, into anime. But had like slightly longer hair, and he was trying to be like cool and shit. But yeah, she was telling me like, oh yeah, she was probably faking it if she can do that. She was probably just doing it for the attention. And then all of a sudden, her and her friend, who was girlfriends with one of my friends, or the girlfriend of one of my friends, who was her boyfriend, and then a friend of theirs from this other, from not only our friend group, but from my friend's friend group as well, were talking mad shit about her. And then eventually they were like, yeah, she just doesn't like you. Like, she complains about you all the time. Like, she says this, and you're annoying, and she wishes you'd leave her alone. And eventually I just kind of gave up. And I remember not sleeping that night. I think I only got 3 hours of sleep. And then I went to school, and I ignored her and didn't talk to her at all. This was senior year, by the way. I mean, I know I mentioned senior year, like senior prank and all, but like, I just wanted to reiterate this whole stuff that I'm talking about right now currently went down senior year. So then we go to home, then there's homecoming, and, that was kind of, its own thing. I really didn't want to be there, and I got home, and I'm just like, really just mad, because it's just like, well, one, I liked her, and two, it just kind of further, that night kind of further was able to kind of play into the rumor that my friend had told me. Eventually, I wrote her an irate message on a Monday after I saw her at school, and I just ignored her. She even waved to me, and, I looked around. There was nobody that she was friends with waving to her, so I looked at her, I just kind of gave her a glare, shook my head, and then just walked away, and I guess she was very confused. And then when I got home that night, I wrote an irate message on MySpace. Yes, good old MySpace. But then eventually, she read it. I guess she cried. I could tell because there were tear stains on the paper that she brought in. And her parents found out about it. They called the school, and they wanted to have me expelled because my verbiage was not particularly good. But my principal liked me and knew that I wouldn't have done anything that out of anger like that unless there was some level of, deep emotional betrayal. And we sat down, we talked it out, and my friend was hurt and, and all that, and I felt bad. I cried for like 40 minutes. My principal couldn't get me to stop crying because it ended up leading me to have a meltdown because I did something that I shouldn't have done, and I felt really bad. But after a while, things, while fractured, kind of started getting back to normal until my quote-unquote friend, the one that used to like me, that manipulated me into doing this, having this, explosive meltdown on my friend in the first place, was just like, next time she says that she's never lied, tell her that she's lying about lying, because even white lies count. And I did that, and I remember that my friend got so mad at me. It was the first time I've ever seen her with a fucking pissed off look on her face. And it took a lot for her to be able to say it very calmly. And she said, I don't lie. Or no, I never lie. And then she just walked away. And that was pretty much the end of our friendship right there. When I did have her sign my yearbook, she wrote a very generic message. She didn't draw her usual smiley face. And I just kind of knew right then and there. It's just like, yeah, this is dead. And then I tried reaching out to her during her, like our college years. Well, I didn't go to college, but what would have been our college years if I went to college. And she just never responded to any of my messages. So that's how I knew the friendship was dead. So I was like, if I would have just listened to my intuition back then, I genuinely think we still would have been friends now. And who knows, like, when I tell people the story and I tell them, like, the facial expressions, and now reflecting back on it with what I know from my spiritual abilities, like the look in her eyes and what her energy felt like back then, people are like, I tell other people with, spiritual abilities this, and they're like, it sounds like she might have actually genuinely had romantic feelings for you back. Like, you two probably would have ended up dating after high school, because Her parents were very strict Christians, so they didn't believe in letting their children date prior to the age of 18. So it's like, it's very possible that we would have ended up dating. Would it have ended up being like a high school sweetheart situation? I don't know. That would have been dependent on how her family saw me, if they liked me or not, the kinds of things that would have arisen, like communication issues, like maybe because back then I wasn't as communicative as I am now. So I would have been like, oh, I don't know if maybe that was what I should have done, or maybe like I just, you know what I mean? Like, I was just so, it's hard to put into words because it's just like, would I have been able to communicate better? Maybe, because like back then I just never really knew how to communicate and put it into words, because I was always told growing up that like I was a wimp, I was a baby, I was this, I was that. So like I was conditioned to be a manly man and not talk about my emotions and my needs. So as an undiagnosed neurodivergent person, that kind of doesn't really help. So I don't know. I might have actually learned how to communicate. And while I might have strained the relationship a couple times, it's possible it could have, it could have been a high school sweetheart situation. Or maybe it would have still been like, we tried dating, it was kind of awkward, and we just stayed lifelong friends. Like we're close, like that brother-sister kind of friendship. You know what I mean? Like a second family almost. But it could have also been we dated and then it just didn't work out, and then we just kind of went our own separate ways and never talked again. Like, I don't know. Like, it could have been any of those three options. But this is why you always, if you have that gut feeling that like, if something feels like it like is just too good, like either too good to be true, or like, then it's probably not true. If it feels like there's a little bit of doubt, it's probably true. I don't know how to really explain it, but like once you start listening to your intuition, like your gut instinct, you kind of learn more how to read it, and you can kind of just tell more. And this is why I always say like meditation is important, and like, really just self-reflecting and doing, introspective work, and, trying to balance your four bodies is very important, because that really also allows you to better understand people. Because if we can't understand people because of social cues and social norm bullshit that neurotypicals like to do, then we can actually use that to our advantage to actually be able to read people and read the room without having to learn social norms. And then when that happens, it kind of just turns everything on its head, because it's just like you're bypassing social norms, but you understand them, ? Is typically what a neurotypical is going to think. So it just adds this new layer, this new nuance of stuff, and it's, I think it's worth it. And that's why I kind of encourage people to just kind of listen to their gut more and learn how to get in tune with it, so that way they kind of understand that. Because I guarantee you, the more you do that, the more you'll kind of realize you can start sensing energy, and you can kind of start feeling out people's vibrations and kind of knowing where people are at, mentally or physically or emotionally, and just kind of know like, oh, this person is just kind of burned out, they're tired, they're exhausted, they're just not in the mood to talk, versus, oh, this person just doesn't want to talk to me. And if I would have listened to my intuition back then, like I said, me and my friend would have still been friends to this day. So with that, I'm going to end this week's episode of the podcast. It's almost 50 minutes long, so I'm kind of, surprised that I had a lot to say. But yeah, normally I try to keep these around like 35 to 40 minutes long, so this is actually kind of impressive for me. But if you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast, since this is up on YouTube only right now, drop a like, hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe button. That way you guys, obviously can get notified when I post videos, or I guess episodes of the podcast. Obviously, like, there is no video. It's usually just a title card and just me talking, obviously. But if you guys like that, then, the notification bell will let you know when I upload a video. And being subscribed to me, well, actually, you have to be subscribed to hit the notification bell in the first place. But still, you guys get the whole, the whole spiel. But anyway, I'm going to edit this really quick. There are a few gaps in there where I was like lost in thought, where I'm just kind of like, So I'm going to kind of shorten those up for you guys so you don't have to sit through that. And then I will have this up later in hopefully about a couple hours. So with that, I will see you guys next time, because again, I've been so burned out from work that I don't know if I'll have the mental energy next week or the week after. So, and again, once I'm done with all my qualifications and trainings and everything, this will go back to being once a week because I won't be burned down anymore. So until the next episode, I hope you guys have, good week, good weekends, good month. If it ends up being a month, I don't know. And I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.